damaging the existing roadway or creating another catastrophe there. So we're trying to be careful with it. So I hope you all will bear with us and understand that it's not something easy to do, especially with the fact that we are short-handed. I want to sadly tell you that the road department lost one of its employees last week. Mr. Walter Wells passed away and was found deceased in his home. So that's another person short. And Walter had lost his wife about a year ago. Never seemed to be the same. But it's sad when you lose an active employee. Tropical Storm Zeta. We finished our last Zoom meeting with FEMA and Gilmer yesterday. All of the work has been accomplished. The chairman should have received and signed and returned the recipient subrecipient agreement. The amount of the damage that the road department incurred was slightly over $147,000. Gilmer County will receive reimbursement 85% of that for $24,950. Lower Carter Cave Bridge. During the month of June, Betts Engineering is an engineering contractor for GDOT. Was at the Lower Carter Cave Bridge doing core samples and soil tests, which should be the last amount of investigation that is done before the final plans for the bridge replacement is accomplished. So that work, I know there were some residents there that were questioning what was going on, but that's what it was. And they were there for about 4 days. The March 25th and 26th flood, again, the road department experienced about $254,000 in damage. We are now working on the regulations, the FEMA regulations there. One of the things that we have found difficult in that most of the work of the representatives is occurring via Zoom. But we did have an on-site inspection to occur on the 28th, 29th, and 30th, where FEMA representatives not only inspected the road department damage, they inspected parks and recreation, golf course, fire department, fire station, and airport. And all of those inspections came out well, and there was agreement with the representatives that the repairs that had been done were done properly, and the estimates that the other departments had received satisfied them. So that concludes the report for the disaster. Road paving bids. We opened bids yesterday for the paving of Courtown Road, Round Top Road, Mount Pisgah Road, and Holden Road. We had 6 bidders that requested specifications, and out of those 6, 3 of them submitted bids. The bids ranged, the high bid was Johnson Paving Company at $4,152,000. C.W. Matthews was the middle bidder at $3,442,519. The apparent low bidder is Colton's Trucking out of Blairsville. They are a long-time contractor that has done a considerable amount of work both for DOT and for Gilmer County. Their bid was $3,171,231.70. We have reviewed the bids. All of the bids are in order. It is above the budgeted amount. Based on what Sandy tells me, the budgeted amount was $2,600,000, Sandy, or thereabouts. So I hope we can come up with the additional money to do all of those roads. If not, we specified in the specifications that the county had the right to remove a road or make adjustments if in fact the bids came in over. I will say to you that the low bid was very close to our estimate. Our estimate was $3,183,677, so they're in line. And we had to go back and do some adjustments there because we had a number of bidders who asked for additional information. So it's going to be my recommendation that we make the award to Colton's Trucking. David hasn't had a chance to review the low bidder, but I called for you yesterday and you didn't return my call. So we'll get those to you. So Colton's called yesterday after the bid opening, and they are ready. Our next step would be to make an award and to issue a notice to proceed. One of the things that makes it easier for hot mix paving now is that the LJ C.W. Matthews asphalt plant is back opening and running, and right now they're running 24 hours a day. So that makes things easier from a haul standpoint. There isn't as much waiting time for trucking the asphalt from the asphalt plant to the job site. But I'll answer any questions that you have about the bid opening. Mr. Parker was there yesterday and observed our bid openings. Let me talk to you a little bit about solid waste. Solid waste, I'm sorry I don't have the monthly tonnage report. The 4th of July put everybody behind in getting the reports out to us, but hopefully I'll have that for you by tomorrow night. The lift station project in solid waste, the EPD is now reviewing our plans and specifications based on communication that we had with EPD and that the engineer provided additional information. They should have their review finished within the next couple of weeks. And based on that, you have already authorized us, once we receive that permit, to start the process for advertising the bid. I will tell you that the engineer has told us that other projects that they have, they're having difficulty in getting materials for that. So that's something that we may face once we have a contractor selected. The other thing that we have facing us is the present vendor that we have, which is Waste Management Company. The contract that we have with them requires us to give them notice 60 days prior to the expiration of the contract. The contract expires on December 31st of 21. So we are in the process now of drafting specifications to prepare for advertising and bidding. And as soon as we have those drafts, we'll provide them to you and to Dave. It is going to be a difficult thing because you may or may not be aware that the compaction equipment that we have at the 7 convenience centers that we have all belong to Waste Management. If a new vendor is selected, then there is going to be a time when that equipment is moved out and new equipment is moved in. So it's not going to be a simple thing, and there may be a disruption in service, but I want to make you aware of that. If there's anything that any of you commissioners would like to see in the new specifications, I encourage you to let me know, and we'll try to incorporate it into the specs. But it'll be the first time that we bid this since I believe 2008 or 9. But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Update on the swimming pool. Lord, now before you get here, I do need to let you know that I have been known to shoot the messenger.
I probably just left. I will say this, just for the record, we did bid the pool the second time, and we did not receive any bids for the second time. So I think most of you are aware of that. So my presentation won't be as long as Jim's, so that's all I got to report. Unless anybody's got questions.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
I had a discussion with David about where do we go from here. We bid this thing out twice now, and we haven't gotten any bids from people to build a pool. And we're ready to get started on it. We can just find somebody to do it. David has given me a couple of options, which I'd like to implement, but we may not have any choice. So we'll be trying to work through that, and we'll let y'all know how we're going to proceed just as soon as we know. But I don't think there's any point in running the bid again. We just be wasting our newspaper money. So we'll see. We'll try to find some alternate route, and as soon as we've got some sort of plan, we'll let y'all know.
I believe there was a end date on that bid, right? We wanted it by,
Well,
we say by Memorial Day next year.
there was an end date, which was Memorial Day.
Only in having some conversations with other pool companies, they're so backed up. I don't know, I didn't hear from any of them saying specifically that was the reason, but they're booked now 1.5 to 2 years out. So that could have affected that.
Well, very well could have, but, and it may turn out in the end we may have to wait 1.5 to 2 years, but it'll be a last resort if we can find some alternate route, you know. Yes, sir.
Well, the question, could the volume be turned up some? There's two of us, so
Eric?
hard, I can hardly hear you.
Okay.
I do feel.
Okay, we're gonna text them and turn it up. Meanwhile, I'll put this a little closer and yell into it, so, not yell into it, but try to speak a little louder.
You're not ready to talk about the different options at this point?
We can do that, yeah.
I just was curious.
One option is that we can act as our own general contractor, and just hire the sub-crews and so forth, and essentially do the job ourselves that we're trying to get somebody to bid to do. That's not, honestly, I don't think we have the expertise to do that. But, which brings us to the second option, which would be to hire a construction project manager that would then do that for us. So, I don't think we have good options, but, and I think we have to continue to look for some other options, but it is fairly clear to me that at least in terms of, let's say a year, and having finished in a year, that the bid process is not going to be helpful to us.
I agree. We just need to move as fast as we can, though.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the problem.
Can I make a recommendation that perhaps you guys scale back the project, get us just a regular pool back to where we have?
Can you come to the microphone, please? Thank you.
I'm not a grumble and complain person, I'm a solutions person. In my, just sitting back and watching and observing the pool situation, I certainly feel for the position you're in. A lot of challenges, certainly faced unprecedented ones in COVID. So my thoughts have been, and my discussion with others has been, we'd just like to be restored to what we had before. Perhaps the big grand scope of the plan is too much to accomplish during this challenging period. Perhaps we just give the people back the pool they had, and then we look at maybe multi-phasing in the other components of the pool, so we can, one, get the community happy again, and two, get the community off your backs, and three, begin to make some forward momentum and movement on the project.
I like to.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Oh.
My name is Kimberly Ruckless. I live at 88 Kennedy Lane in Ellijay.
How do you spell your last name?
Reckles. Thank you. Thank you.
There has been some casual discussion, not formal, about getting back a little bit, particularly in terms of the, I guess you said, the water features. If that would be something that could help us, we certainly don't have to do that. The other thing, the only way I know that we could scale back would be essentially in size. It's a bigger pool than what we had, but it's basically about the same shape and so forth. The reason it's larger in size is because there's been a great demand for the swim teams to be able to utilize it. And it's a one-shot thing. You can't put the pool back the way it was and then later decide you want to enlarge it so that the swim teams can utilize it. But it's something to consider, so thank you.
And I personally didn't think it was that extravagant of a pool. It definitely has the water features, the little, and that may be complicated or complicating.
Well, the water features were the only thing that I felt was kind of extravagant.
Right, and they were just the mushroom things with water.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the rest
The
of
big
it,
thing is the size, I think, because it's substantially larger than the old pool. But again, if we're going to try to accommodate swim teams, we have to do it up front. We can't come back later.
no, absolutely not. Right. And I would like to continue forward to accommodate the swim team. It's not just those, it's all ages swimming laps, yoga, water aerobics classes, all of it. So I think the size,
Well, it's also
Met.
geared to to with the zero entry and the attached but sort of separate shower end. That's geared for the water aerobics and the things that seniors have.
I don't think
There's-
The size, Lloyd, can you come back up and, I think Lloyd gathered some information, just that was the concern of those that were potentially interested in bidding. And you shared with me the concerns that those that were potentially concerned, or potentially interested in bidding, there was two factors
Yeah,
that were
there's
in
two
play.
factors that I've discovered, talking to some of the pool builders as of right now. And the first one you mentioned, that they are covered up. The second one is that the fluctuation of material costs right now, that people are a little bit afraid to bid because they're afraid the concrete prices would go up and all of that. So those two factors, I think, is influencing it quite a bit as far as not getting a bid. And your discussion about the size of the pool, the size of the pool I don't think is relevant as far as whether we got 7 lanes or 10 lanes. I think what's relevant is that it's a public pool. And when you have a public pool, then you have a limited number of people that can do that type of work, or is willing to do that type of work. So with the limited number of bidders that you've got, them being covered up already, and the price fluctuation in the cost of material, I think all of that influences what's happening in the food business. Okay.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. Do either of y'all feel that it would be helpful to advertise it for bid one more time with no restrictions on time limits?
What do we do, 30 days, 60? What do we have to do for the public pool? 60 days or 30?
It's 5
5
weeks.
weeks.
Lloyd, I hate to ask you to come back up.
I did that.
Lloyd had shared with me a thought on whether or not to, or when to consider rebidding it. And Lloyd, can you share that with the?
I just mentioned to David about, the pool has to be filled back in basically anyway. Possibility of doing the contract, or Jim's gonna hate me for saying this, but the county to fill the pool back in, of course, we'd have to pack it and do it properly with the filling in. And then late winter next year, then put it back out for bids when people need some business. Because I don't think we're gonna get the pool open this year anyway.
Well, I don't see any possibility of having a road department do it with what they've got. And
Yeah, I understand that.
Short staffed as they are.
Right.
But I wouldn't be opposed to bidding out to fill it in. So,
Yeah, and that would
If
be
that
something that several contractors would be interested in doing that,
Yeah.
even local people.
I'd like to give some thought of bidding it one more time without a limitation on the end, just to see what we get.
what does it cost us for 5 weeks to bid?
I don't ever see the charges for it.
Yeah, it's several
Say-
hundred dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be reluctant to bid it without some time frame. I mean, it can go on forever, all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't have to accept it if they've come back with something.
But the bid would have to, if they bid it, they'd be bidding on our spec, which says,
Right.
now the,
Okay, okay, so Hubert,
It got to be
then,
specific.
what about if we give it, I mean, I don't know.
I think we need to digest it.
I'm sorry,
I think we need to digest it a little bit more.
I agree with that, unfortunately.
While we're suggesting, let's think about the possibility of bidding out to have it filled in. If that helps.
I can't speak to that, what are you going to do? We have to fill it in before we can dig it out, right?
It's true. I mean, it's gotta be filled back in anyway, And the reason for it is that it needs to be packed properly, and because you can't just start building concrete. You need something to support the wall, so you gotta build it back in anyway. I
Plus,
know that
it's-
sounds crazy, you gotta build it back in, dig it back out, but in order to get good compaction, that's what needs to be done.
Plus, this is government.
Do what?
You know,
What, Charlie?
this is government. We have to fill it in and don't
Right.
dig it out.
So do we, so the contractor would fill it in first?
Yeah.
And compact it, so that'll save us a little money if they don't have to do it. if we
But
do
you
it
gotta do
before.
it anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's something that's gotta be done.
Okay, and I have no, I didn't want the thought of, let's just fill it back in and sit on it for a while.
No.
So if that's what needs to be done, that the contractor would even have to do anyway.
Yeah,
so.
we wouldn't be doing anything that would be extra.
Mhm.
That would just be removed from the bid if we bid it again.
And I'm just thinking that as far as putting out a bid, to immediately put out a bid again, I think you still got the same situation. If we are correct in our assumption that they're covered up and they don't know what the material cost is gonna be, you still got the same situation. Nobody's gonna bid because they're still covered up, even though you've got no time on it. But if we took time, filled it in before, winter time, and then even November, December, rebid the pool with a time limit to be open by Memorial Day next year, something like that, then you'd probably get a bid.
Well, let's percolate on all this for a little bit. And maybe one of us will have an epiphany.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
Lloyd.
Lloyd.
My last bid,
Yes, sir. All right. Discussion, possible action of the American Recovery Plan. We have received the first distribution, a little bit over $3 million. We're still, the provisions on what it can and can't be used for are far stricter this go around than they were under the CARES Act. So we're still trying to figure out for sure. And we have to be confident before we spend the money on something, because if we decide that this could be approved, then we spend money on it. And then it's not approved, we just sunk a whole bunch of our own money into something. You know, so we need to be sure on it. My suggestion is that we just kind of take our time and look over this. And maybe at some point down the road, we either put it on the agenda or have a special call meeting or something for specifically that.
That's fine, and this is not something that has to be spent in 2021.
No.
It's explain to folks.
We have until 2024.
Right.
2024.
Right, so it's a long-term amount of money.
Okay.
Charlie, they are updating those frequently asked questions that I handed
Yeah.
out to y'all earlier ever so often. So as I get those updates, I'll send those out to y'all too, because there's some good questions being posed as to, you know,
One of the things I was thinking too is, you know, we're just one of 159 counties that are doing this same thing. And ACCG is sending out a surplus that, with all the counties where we're all sort of communicating back and forth with each other. I think it might be a good idea to let some of the other counties spend some on different things and make sure they got it approved before we kind of stick our toe in the water, so to speak. Sounds good. All right. I may or may not have something for the road paving list tomorrow night, but I don't have anything for right now.
Orchard Lane,
Orchard Lane,
the trucks really torn that up.
and that's not, I thought that was on the list, not.
I didn't see it, maybe I'm overlooking.
No, that's probably not.
I
Okay.
don't think it is.
Okay. Let's, then tomorrow, I'll just be sure to get that. Make a note of that. Okay. Before we go on, I want to give just a little bit of background here. This is the point where we usually have citizens wishing to speak. And you may notice on the agenda, we've moved that down after the rezoning request. The procedure for a rezoning request is that when the request is made, there has to be a sign placed at the property. All of the adjoining property owners have to be individually notified. And it has to run in the paper for, I think it's 4 weeks. 2 weeks? 2 weeks, okay. And this is prior to the planning board meeting. You first go to the planning board, and at the planning board is where everybody makes their arguments. That's where you say for or against and why. The planning board's job is to listen to everybody's position, and then taking into consideration the joint comprehensive plan that we have, make a recommendation to us whether to approve or not approve. When it gets to us, now we listen to the recording of the meeting. I don't go to the meetings myself because I feel that it would be, they might feel like I'm trying to influence on someone one way or another, so. But we listen to the recordings of the meetings before we get here. And then we make our own decision. But we lean heavily on the planning board's recommendations. The reason that I mention this is because I want to make particular reference to all the advertising that has to be done before the planning board meeting. That particular advertising is not done before the commissioners meeting. So there is nothing out there that says to the public, come to the commissioners meeting and you can make your arguments. That's for the planning board meeting. It would be inappropriate because we haven't advertised it. It would be inappropriate to have comments in this meeting in terms of here's why it should not be approved or here's why it should be approved. Perfectly fine to say I'm opposed or I'm in favor, but the reasons for that should have been given at the planning board meeting and can't be given here. And I understand it's very difficult for people to come to the microphone and say I'm opposed and not say because they'll do something or other, and then, you know. So what we're going to do is we're moving the comments until after the rezonings have been handled. The comment portion used to be at the very end of the meeting. We moved it to the top of the meeting because if somebody wanted to come and make a comment, we didn't want them to have to sit through maybe 3 or 4 hour meeting just to make a 5-minute comment. So we're still going to try to keep it as close to the top as we can, but it will be after the rezonings from this point. So, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, if not, then we will proceed with the rezonings. The first one is for Liliana Vasquez, Romero, and Randy Vasquez. A1 agricultural to R2 residential high density. The stated purpose of this is to be able to build additional houses. I'm going to sort of jump in with some initial comments. We're right now in the midst of quite the controversy, I guess you'd say, between the people who live here in the county over high density versus low density, affordable housing, how that affects high density. There's a lot going around. And it seems to me that the arbiter in all of this is actually our joint comprehensive plan. We have one, it goes until, I believe it's 2024.
Before.
Yeah. That spells out very specifically where, what, and how much. And R2 is extremely limited in our comprehensive plan, to the extent that, according to our plan, R2 should represent only about 0.05% of the land availability in the county. Now, having said that, I will see if any of the other commissioners want to make any comment before we continue.
I think in this particular request, some of the responses we got indicate a lack of understanding of what R2 is. They talk about apartments, which should not be allowed. So R2, as I understand it, only allows single-family residential.
It allows, yeah, it only allows single family, but it doubles the number of them.
Correct.
Well, if there's no other comments, we can move on then to the next one. Judy Wright, from A1 Agriculture to R1 Residential Low Density. The purpose of this is to split the parcel and deed some property to the children, to her children. I don't see any issues on it myself.
Yeah, you skipped,
No?
you said Judy Wright.
But
Yeah, number one was one where we were discussing the R2.
How about the D.F. Walker property?
Walker,
Number 2, I'm sorry.
I was looking at two, but
Oh, yeah, okay, I did skip two. Well, we'll go back to, Okay, D.F. Walker Properties, C1 commercial to R1 residential. They're looking to split 1.5 acres from commercial that's being sold to separate the residence that's not being sold. I have no problem with
good.
that. With number 3, I believe we said, no problem with that, right? Number 4, Richard S. Bent and Jan Kastanakis from R1 residential location to R1 residential location density with conditional use. That's to build a 1,200 square foot home and 500 square foot guest home. Apparently they do have the approval from the architectural committee and the HOA where they live and of the HOA.
No problem with motion.
I'm good with it.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that we treat the next 5 pretty much as one. And essentially what it is for various, 5 various properties to convert from either A1 or R1 to R2. And I believe the end result is to have a high-density subdivision. There's a couple of things on that. We've already talked about the R2 situation. We also have an objection from Fanning County. And that the road roads for access will all be coming from Fannin County. They are objecting to the use of those roads, particularly the Forest Service Road, or the one that goes through the forest property. They say that they have not approved any of that, and that their position is that they would have to approve it before anybody can do anything anyway, and they object to it. So just throwing that out there for this. No decision will be made today, but does anybody else have anything pertinent to add on that?
Well, the plan doesn't, the 5-year plan doesn't call for R2 in that area.
It does not.
Right.
I really have, I'm in following the 5-year plan. It just does not call for that in that area. It's also a very sensitive area next to the forest, the national forest. So I think bringing it up that much is.
All right, so are we ready to move on to number 10?
Yes.
For Margaret Evans Huff, from A1 agricultural to R1 residential. This is to split out a parcel for a family member. I have no problem. And the same thing, number 11 is the same thing, same people.
Same.
Now, that brings us to citizens wishing to speak. So, anybody that would like to comment on any issue, although I would caution you that since we haven't voted on any of the rezonings yet, please don't comment on why you think they should or should not be done, because we haven't advertised those for public comments on yet. So, anybody that would like to make any comment? Okay, if not, item number 12, discussion and possible action on approving the Georgia Department of Transportation contract for installation of the AWAS system in Gilmer County Airport. Did y'all get a copy of that?
Actually, don't.
Okay, I brought some extras. Somewhere.
That's for installation, not insulation.
I didn't write it.
Oh, I'm not sure I'm right.
Yes, installation.
Installation.
Yeah, we're not gonna insulate it, or we are, anyway, I don't. I didn't give away all two of them, did I?
No.
No, you were. David, you want one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is for $114,000 for the installation of the AWAS at the airport. There is no county matching fund to this. Now, you'll notice on here that it says, please confirm by letter no later than July 12th your intent to proceed. I have confirmed, because I figured this is not a contract. If y'all turn it down, I can call them up and say, never mind. So we've met that deadline, but we're not bound by it.
I have no problem.
It's pretty straightforward, and you know, there's no matching funds on our part, so works for me.
Our airport manager, obviously, is he part of getting this, or is this through Jim?
I can tell you that the AWAS, or the Automated Weather Observation System that we have there, is old. I think it was installed in 2008. They are having difficulty even finding parts to repair. So it is an opportune time for that old piece of equipment to be taken out and replaced with more up-to-date equipment, and also possibly to expand on the ability of the AWAS to serve the pilots of the area. The other thing that I want to mention to you about the AWAS that we did some years back is that it is a National Weather Service station where the National Weather Service can actually monitor that AWAS, that helps to inform not only us, but the North Georgia area of impending weather conditions. So it's an important piece of equipment and should be replaced.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. I'm even better with it now.
Okay. Discussion, possible action on CRSA tax relief funds from the FAA for Gilmer County Airport. This is going to be more of the coronavirus relief funding.
And is this the second round, or this is just a separate FAA one? Okay. That's right.
I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, they would do it. Okay.
Discussion and possible action of appointment to the Northwest Georgia Region 1 Emergency Medical Services Coordinating Council. And the candidate requested for that is Eric Irish.
Eric is slated in March, but they were once there.
Well, then the candidate will not be Eric Irish. Mike who?
Schminky.
SCHMINKY.
Okay. Mike Schmicky to replace Eric Irish. Does anybody have any other candidates?
No, sir.
Discussion and possible action of two appointments to keep Gilmer Beautiful Advisory Board. And when if I get these wrong, be dealing with me. Ashley McGowan and Ron Chestnut.
Okay, Ron was there. Okay.
Yeah, Ron would be serving in addition to Wes.
Okay. Okay.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Discussion and possible action appointment to the Department of Family and Children Services Board. That would be Anita Summers.
Yes. Good.
Discussion and possible action of appointment to the LJ Gilmer Water and Sewer Authority. And that would be Billy Rowe to be reappointed.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion and possible action of appointment to the Building Authority Board. Mark Heiss has agreed to go one more time, so.
Okay. No problem.
Discussion and possible action on road paving bids. I think we probably have already had that discussion.
All right, so he said
If
it.
y'all have anything else you want
We're going to be in a position tomorrow night
to add? Yeah, we'll have to.
to award it.
What we'll do tomorrow night is we'll need to vote to award it to one of the bidders, I would imagine the low bidder, but with the stipulation that we still have to go back and look at the funding we have available, what we can make available, and what their costs are, to see if something needs to be modified in.
Could we do that before tomorrow night?
Yeah.
You just go away.
It's not here, I think.
I think he just stepped out
Okay.
for a second.
Well,
Here's the person
The financial.
well, I think Jim is gonna have to be in on it too, if we're talking about what roads might be cut, or.
that. I thought Sandy's gonna come with the money.
Oh.
I'll do my best.
Sandy, come tell us how you can come up with the money.
I will do my best, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, I know we discussed when these jobs were bid, that we would provide the materials, and we would ask them to simply provide the labor and equipment. Do you know if that's how those bids read?
I think David said we could no longer do that.
Well, we can't do it and take advantage of the sales tax statement.
That's correct. Can't take away.
We'll still take advantage of the prices we've negotiated for material. Jim?
I'm sorry? Yes.
The bids that went out for the paving,
Yes, sir.
were they for labor and equipment only, or did they include the people providing the materials?
People provide the materials
Okay,
per the county attorney's instructions.
okay.
We can't bid that way anymore, so.
Well, we can, we just.
They have to pay
we
the
wouldn't
sales
get
tax on
advantage of the
They have
sales
to pay
tax.
sales tax, so the specifications were that the contractor provides all materials.
Yeah, okay, good. So, it was 3,000,001 roughly.
Yep.
Sandy, do you recall pretty close to what we have allocated in the budget?
It was $2,677,000, I believe.
It originally started out at 3 million, that based on our estimate. And by the time you all got finished doing your final tweaking, it was down to 2,660,000 or something like that.
$2,677,000, I believe.
Yeah.
Roughly $500,000 that we gotta come up with.
Yeah, and if I were asked to, what roads we would drop off, it would be Holden Road and Mount Pisgah. I do not want to go back. Wardtown Road is the most expensive project that this county has ever attempted. It's 10.8 miles. But we have done so much piecemeal, I want to do it all. And the same thing with Round Top. Those are the two worst,
Yeah.
condition-wise. But I'd like to do them all, because the Round Top Road, Mount Pisgah, and Holden Road are all in the same area.
Now let me, I want to verify that none of this includes the Elmy projects.
No, this
That
is.
the Elmy money is.
This is
totally separate.
100% county funded.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The LMIG project, that the county forces will be doing the LMIG, and that is tar and chip. This is asphalt.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we weren't spending our Elmy money in this as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I guess one thing I was thinking about, with the corona's relief funds, although we don't know how they get spent, that's gonna relieve something,
Well,
I would think.
it will, if we could, the key to that is to spend it on something that we were probably going to have to spend it on anyway.
Or I've already spent it.
Or already spent it on, preferably.
I was hoping that might give us some relief in this area.
Well, one of the things that Sandy and I have already discussed is the EMA and EMS's position is that every dollar spent on salary is in fact COVID related, because every time they go out on a call, they have to go out in full protective equipment, whether, because they don't know, if they're gonna pull up on COVID or not. So because they have to put on full PPE to go out, they need to not be COVID related. We're gonna turn that in for approval. Once we calculate the total amount of that, we're gonna turn it in for approval, because that represents money already spent. So if they turn us down, we haven't been out of pocket more than what we already are. So we don't know what that'll be, and we don't know how much they'll approve, but we're gonna give it a shot.
One other question, David, if we decided we drop off 2 roads, could we hold that bid for 3 months?
I think the longest you can hold is 60 days.
60 days is what the specifications call for, that the bid, all of the bidders guarantee the bid for 60 days.
Yeah, the only problem is if you piecemeal it, there could be a complication. I feel like there could be.
Well, if you drop a road off, then, I'm not trying to speak for the contractors, but I wouldn't, if it went beyond that 60 days, I wouldn't guarantee those prices. So, if you drop the roads off, then my recommendation would be that you rebid those roads. Because I think you complicate things by piecemealing the way you award, and asking the contractor to hold his prices when you've heard, prices are not going down, they're going up. And a lot of this work is associated with fuel prices, almost all of it, as a matter of fact.
That's all I have.
Is there a set date, I assume I don't see it, that they'll be finished by?
I don't think that we gave them an upset date. We give them, and the reason, Karleen, is because this work is dependent on weather. You can't pay, when it's raining or and weather and temperature. So I can't recall if there is an upset date. Now, what we do require in the specifications is that whoever the contractor is, they are responsible for drafting the contract. We don't have a contract yet. We select the bidder, and then we notify them to provide their bonding, their insurance. All of that stuff still has to be done. So there's still a lot of work to do before we can issue a notice to proceed. But I assure you that based on today's prices, they're going to want to get it finished as soon as possible, because the longer they take, the cost of materials goes up.
Okay.
I think we've already covered the swimming pool. Discussion possible.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm sorry.
Can I make one comment
Yeah.
about the swimming pool?
Yeah.
Have you thought about a cost plus advertisement? Basically, what I heard Roy say and others is that cost of materials, and it is across the board right now, folks. I mean, it is rampant in building materials and things like that. And I don't know what the county attorney would think about that.
Jim, Lloyd and I did discuss that this morning,
Did you?
and, yeah, and the only concern there on the cost pluses is the scheduling, because if we do a cost plus that's gonna be it's in the first or second quarter of next year, it may be difficult still to
Yeah.
receive a bid.
It's-
But we did discuss that, because I did feel like that was a concern, and honestly, we explored, Charlie and I explored several different options, and I'm glad you stepped up to the plate on this. You've got some good ideas, and
Well,
maybe
the
could
other,
take
Charlie and I
over.
talked about it the other day. We've done projects where the county serves as a general contractor.
Yeah.
We've actually done projects that are cost plus. And that would relieve, the uneasiness that contractors have about what they're gonna pay for materials.
Yeah,
It will leave us open-ended though, and
Well,
potentially
and
way out.
that's the danger, unless you can put parameters in there, you know. But everybody's faced with it now.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, discussion and possible action of a resolution in support of the application for Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. Ken, would you explain to us what that gets us?
The Georgia Initiative for Community Housing, or GEC, as the Department of Community Affairs refers to it, is an educational opportunity offered. It's a 3-year program. It's an educational opportunity that's offered through the University of Georgia Department of Community Affairs. We applied for it last year jointly with the cities of LJ and East LJ to send folks to the program. They would get to see other communities around the state, what they've done that was successful, what they did that didn't work real well. Give us an opportunity to learn from what other people have done. They only accept 5 communities a year, so a lot of times you end up with a situation where you may apply 2 or 3 years in a row before you have what you participate. But doing it jointly with East LJ and LJ gives us an opportunity to look at a comprehensive planning process, educational process for our community.
Okay, this would be a joint initiative for the 3.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I think it's a much-needed
Thank you.
program. I'm hopeful we might get it this year.
Okay, at this point, we will be going into executive session with no action anticipated. And I would make a motion that we go into executive session with no action anticipated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, folks. We appreciate it.
Yeah, somebody's
Rhonda said hello.
I will.
I spent most yesterday helping my dad breathe. So out in all the holes and well, yeah, it's you got the front porch. So there's something, yeah. I think. Yeah, business phone. It's more just being out in the heat and being nasty and all the pollen that really got me. Yeah, I'm glad he's lived down in Jasper for a while. And so I'm moving back up here, he's really close to me. It wasn't that far, but now at least it's just like a 5-minute drive up the road and see him hang out.
Yeah, Bob.
Well, yeah, he got lucky and they were doing, what's it called? His wife. It's not a permit. It's basically just sitting there like taking care of everything. They had that, unfortunately, the lady, I didn't even know exactly. The lady did something. Based on mental health. So now they're just sitting there with the house.